Italian Football Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Questions from the Italian Football Podcast Patrons, where you, our patrons, decide what the show is about by simply sending in your questions via DM on Patreon. I'm joined, as always, by Carlo Garganese. We've got lots of questions. We'll try to get through all of them, and if the ones we don't get through today, they will carry it over to next week, so don't worry about that. We always do that. We always answer every question sent in, but sometimes the sheer volume of them doesn't allow us to go through all of them the week they were sent. But don't worry, they will be answered. And we also move questions around so that the most topical ones are answered immediately and the more timeless, evergreen ones can be moved on. So just so you understand that. So we do answer all questions. Right, let's start in with the first question sent in from CJ Barile, who says, do Italy risk losing another generational talent to an ACL tear in Giovanni Leoni? And who is to blame for this epidemic of ACL injuries among Italians? And that is why I'm wearing this classic Liverpool shirt in honor of Leoni, who I mean, had a horrible injury in a situation that didn't even look like a situation. And now, I mean, it's confirmed it's an ACL tear, isn't it?
I don't know if Liverpool have actually confirmed it officially, but you know, it's an ACL tear. It's in all the journalists and I think there's actually Leoni said thank you to the fans as well. So yeah, unfortunately, it's an ACL tear.
Okay, but it's a serious knee injury. That much we can say.
It's an ACL tear. I mean, there's the ACL tear in the knee is the one injury that you don't want to get, full stop. But in the knee, if you get an MCL injury or a meniscus injury, which is not good either, or an LCL injury, you know, these are all nasty injuries, but generally you fully recover from them. Generally, mostly players would nearly always fully recover from those injuries. With an ACL, that's where the big risk comes involved in whether you become the same player again, and we have to be honest about that because the history shows that no more so than with Italian players. So will Leoni be the same player again? I mean, if you look at Federico Chiesa, if you look at Nicolo Zaniolo, if you look at some other non-Italian players that have had bad ACL injuries, you know, there's a risk. There's a risk involved.
There's definitely a risk involved. But this is what I wanted to say. Those attacking players you mentioned, they lose pace, explosiveness, the combination of the speed and explosiveness when dribbling and pushing forward like Zaniolo and Chiesa. But if you look at someone like Scalvini, if you look at someone like Bremer, defenders generally don't push forward like that unless they're wingers or wing players, wing backs. He's a central defender, and I think that is kind of the only silver lining here. Is exactly that he is a young player. He's a defender. He doesn't really rely on his explosive speed. He's just physically very strong and very good in the air. And his marking, he reads the game really well. Yeah, so I'm not too worried. I'm hoping, obviously, that it's not an ACL, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it is. I think that if he can recover from this. And this is, again, I mean, this curse, because it feels like a curse now, of Italian players, a starting lineup of Italian players. We've got two central defenders in Scalvini and Leoni now. We have a winger in Chiesa. We have a number 10 in Zaniolo. We have an attacker in Scamacca. I'm just waiting for the goalkeeper and two central midfielders.
Well, Calafiori as well.
Yeah, Calafiori, sorry. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Calafiori's our left centre back. So we got the back four almost sorted. Just need a right back and a goalkeeper. Then the defence and the back four is sorted in our lineup of ACLs. It's absurd. It's genuinely absurd. And it just keeps hitting these most talented players as well.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was speaking about this with some of my friends last night, and we're all, especially me and you, more than anyone else, we're always super critical about the state of Italian football, how we're not producing enough young talents, how the number of Italians playing in Serie A is abysmal, and that's all correct. But at the same time, if you go to any other kind of top nation, even the ones that are producing a hell of a lot more players than us, like a Spain or a France, for example, and you say to them, right, we're going to take out your
8-9 players.
Yeah, or say half. You're going to take out 5 starting level players with ACLs. 2 or 3 of them, maybe your most generational players, like Chiesa, generational player. Leoni,
Zaniolo's certainly
Leoni's
was
generational players. Zaniolo, honestly, people forget just how much potential this guy has because they see him now, which is sad what he's become now, and they see that they don't actually remember this guy and how much potential he had. He wasn't the finished product, but this is a guy that Roberto Mancini used to say was Italy's biggest talent. The player that could become the best talent. This is Roberto Mancini, and I think I trust Roberto Mancini when it comes to scouting because his whole history shows that he can spot a young talent better than most people can. So I trust Roberto Mancini when he said that. So you take that out of any team. Imagine you went to England and you said, right, Harry Kane at 22, we're going to give him an ACL. Jude Bellingham at 19, we're going to give him an ACL. Cole Palmer at 19, we're going to give him an ACL. Let's see how England would have performed. You can't tell me that England would have struggled more. So I think that this really has affected the Italy national team during this dark period over the last kind of 5 years or so. Euro victory aside, it's affected us badly.
It absolutely has, and like I said, we have an ACL starting 11 in a 4-3-2-1 in a 4-2-3-1, and we're filling in spots. Like literally, our back 4 is almost done. You got Calafiori, Scalvini, Leoni. We don't have a right back. I'm sure we'll have one by the end of the season. Goalkeeper, we don't. I'm not.
The end of the month, sure. More like.
Yeah, well, we don't have a goalkeeper yet. But we have Chiesa to the right. We're Zaniolo as a 10, Scamacca as a 9. So we're missing 4, 5 players.
Yeah, if we can ask who is to blame for the epidemic. Now, I would direct everybody to go back around a year. I think it was in October last year after the Bremer ACL. And we did a really, really popular, well-received interview. I think I did it with a physiotherapist who we basically discussed the whole ACL epidemic, not just based with Italy, but just in general, because there is an ACL epidemic in football right now. In the last 20 years, the number of ACLs has gone up 29-fold. 29-fold in the last 20 years. So it is an epidemic. It's not just in Italy, but in Italy it is worse. I saw another study which someone forwarded to me last night that the incidence of ACLs in Italy is far higher than in the other major European leagues. So it is higher in Italy. There's something that we're doing worse, but it is everywhere. It's not just it only happens in Italy. It's an epidemic everywhere. And if you listen to that interview that I did with the physiotherapist, we looked at we looked at a lot of things, but one of them was the causes. What is causing this epidemic?
The factors behind it.
There's 3 major factors. One is, and this is according to the physio, the biggest reason is, and everybody's agreed on this, is the number of games being played. There's too many games being played, and basically your ACL, your anterior cruciate ligament, acts as a secondary or passive stabilizer for your knee. The first stabilizer is your muscles. So basically, in layman's terms, the muscles kind of protect you from injury. But when you're fatigued, when you're playing too many games, those muscles get weakened, those muscles get tired. So they don't stabilize and protect the knee, and it goes to your secondary or passive stabilizer. And that's where the pressure becomes too much, and that's where that's why your ACL goes. And for non-contact ACL injuries, of which we see quite a lot of, that is why, a movement that looks innocuous and a player's done so many times will all of a sudden lead to an ACL tear. So it's too many games that are causing this. And also, you see most of the ACL injuries tend to happen at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season. They happen at the end of the season because players are exhausted from playing too many games. They happen at the start of the season because when you go from, you ramp up very quickly from zero to a very intense football. And I reckon that probably played a factor with Leoni. He's gone from no football, this was his debut, to all of a sudden an intense game, 80 minutes, and he probably, his ACL couldn't handle it. So that's number one. Too many games, but the football authorities don't care about that. They just want more money, bigger World Cups, Club World Cup, bigger Champions Leagues, more. And that's the reason for that. The secondary reason
and speaking of that, just a point, they're talking about for 2030 World Cup to turn it into 60 teams.
64, yeah.
64 teams.
Mm. Well, at least
there's 150 nations, 155 states. How many member states does FIFA have? 150? That's almost half. Then what's the point of having a qualifier?
No, but they won't get rid of those qualifiers. They'll still make you play them. But yeah, at least
Italy will qualify. Even more games then.
At least Italy will qualify then. Although we'll qualify with a team, half a team of because our other half will be ACL victims. But at least we'll qualify. So that's number one. And then number two is this is more. The other factors are more kind of up for debate, but training, like how we train the players, and I think that's definitely a big factor with Italian players because we're outdated. We've got outdated training. We focus way too much on fitness, especially in pre-season, the retiros, which adds to the first point about players being fatigued and tired. So that I think that's a factor. And then there's the pitches, the state of the pitches, which Italian football, again, the facilities and the state of the training pitches and in Italy are abysmal. Like look at the Stadio Olimpico, for example. I mean, it's just embarrassing. The San Siro from certain periods hasn't been the best either. But the Olimpico, where seem to be most of the ACLs seem to happen, both for Roma and for visiting teams, like the Chiesa's one, abysmal. But what I believe, and this is where there's a kind of a bit of a divide over whether it is a factor, but I'm absolutely adamant this is a factor. The studies will tell you there's no conclusive proof that hybrid and plastic pitches are a factor in ACL injuries. It's proven that they're a factor in other injuries like foot injuries and ankle injuries. That's been proven that you get more foot and ankle injuries because of the hybrid and plastic pitches. It's not been proven at all. The studies haven't proven it. From the studies that they've done, which I don't think are good enough, the studies, that they're not a factor in ACL injuries. I completely disagree with that. I think that anybody that's played football will tell you that if you play on a proper pitch, like the old pitches that we used to play on them as kids, where they were fully 100% grass pitches, compared to what has become the norm now among nearly all kind of professional, top-level professional football pitches, which is their hybrid pitches or they're just artificial, full stop. There's less give in the ground. It's just basic logic that when there's less give in the ground, that puts more pressure onto your body, onto your legs, and it causes more injuries. And I think even if you look at the Leoni injury, look at the way that his leg and his knee kind of bends and rotates. And if that was on a fully grass pitch, there would have been more give in that. It's like running on sand or on water. You're not putting that pressure on. It's the knees and the legs are not taking all the pressure. And so I generally believe, and Steven Gerrard said this as well. Steven Gerrard believes that to honour your shirt there, Steven Gerrard believes that it is these hybrid and artificial pitches are a big reason why the ACLs, we're getting more and more ACLs, because we didn't used to get hardly any nimble when we were kids. Like in the 90s, or if you go back before the 90s, how many people used to get ACLs? You used to get the odd one. I mean, I remember Alan Shearer got a bad one, and the recovery times were longer as well. But now you get it all the time. I'm adamant that the pitches are the hybrid pitches play a role in this. It's a combination of factors, but that's what I believe, because there's no other reason why they should It's not just down to more games. They used to play a lot of games back then. I remember Gerd Müller used to play 65 games a season when he used to play. So I don't believe it's just you're playing more football matches.
Well, it's not just that they're playing more football, but the intensity of the game has improved since Gerd Müller played. The training methods have improved, but it's also more load. Like there's more workload on the body. And I think football, football is not like ice hockey or NBA. There's much more ground to cover, and therefore they can play more games like that compared to football, because football it's 120 times 93 meters, the pitch, right? And there's much more ground to cover. I think the load that you put on the body is different to other sports, and therefore I'm not saying it's the only one. I think you detailed it brilliantly there, and I think that interview was really good. I can't remember, his name was Dr. Raj. Yeah. He explained really, really well. But I do think the sheer volume of how much work you put on these bodies is a huge factor. I think with the Italian thing, the pitches the pitches are a disgrace. I mean, they are a disgrace. Some of them look like potato fields. And then, it's some of them, like the San Siro, where they because the way they built it for Italia 90, there was no sun coming in, and then they had to. It turns out
Who decides a football stadium for a pitch and no sunlight? I mean,
because
basic. I mean, I failed biology, but even
photosynthesis actually works.
Even I would have known that.
Yeah, I know. No, it doesn't come enough, and that's what they said, that there was a problem with that not enough sun came in, and so the grass didn't grow. So, but then of course they use hybrid pitches and blah blah blah. Look, it is what it is. It is what it is, and it's a combination of factors. But with Leoni, I think he hasn't played that many games, but the step up from Parma, Serie A to Liverpool and Premier League was too much for his body, I think.
I think with Leoni, it's a bit of bad luck. If you see how it happened, it was very unlucky. But again, I think it's the ramping up from, and this is a proven factor. When you ramp up from not playing at all to suddenly playing 90 minutes intense, that's why one of the reasons, like I said before, why you get a lot more ACLs at the start of the season, because players are going from zero playing time to all of a sudden 90 minutes. So he's gone from, this was his debut. We're near the end of September. So, he's gone the first month and a bit of the season without playing a single minute. And then all of a sudden, bang, he's straight in there. It happened towards the end of the game. And also, if you look at how it happened, unlucky, but also, like I'm saying, that's where I think the pitch plays a role. Because if you do that on a soft pitch, which got give in the ground, it is actually proven that hard pitches cause more ACL. Dry pitches cause more ACL injuries. So if dry pitches cause more ACL, I believe that hybrid pitches and artificial pitches cause ACL because there's no give in the ground. It's like playing on a hard ground. So I mean, for me, I don't agree with the studies that say that it's not proven. I believe they need to do better studies.
Well, it's not that it's not proven. They're basically saying there's not enough evidence to support the claim yet.
Yes.
So they're not ruling it out. They're saying there's nothing to suggest. I mean, people need to understand the differences when it comes to scientific studies. That if you do a study that says no, there is no correlation, that's different. But if you have a study that says no, we don't have enough evidence to make this claim, that's different.
Yeah. Well, that's the situation.
Yeah. Right. Next question from André Barilaro. He says, "Hi, Nima and Carlo. A lot of nations boast international legends with 50, 60, even 100 plus goals. Meanwhile, Italy's all-time goal scorer is Gigi Riva with 35, a record that's been frozen in time since the 70s. Why has no Italian ever come close? Is it a tactical thing, a cultural thing, or just the curse of every striker being converted into a defensive midfielder by age of 27? I have to be honest with you. I think it's got to do with the fact, if you look at the sheer volume of quality that Italy have had after Riva, from then till well, not now, but just before this dry patch that Italy have experienced, the competition was so much that you couldn't play regularly. If you look at the number of games they played, Totti played 30, 40 times for Italy. He didn't play that
50 something, yeah.
Baggio didn't play that many times for Italy either. Filippo Inzaghi didn't play that much. Del Piero didn't play as much. Just that generation alone, you don't get up to these high numbers because the quality and the Mancini barely played for Italy. I mean, they were also because he told people to go do one, but as he's always done. Vialli, I mean, all these players are, Ravanelli, they don't have that many caps in attacking.
That's exactly the main reason. Partly also, for a while, Italy's way of playing was you'd score and then you wouldn't necessarily go to win by 4 or 5. That is a secondary factor, but the number one factor,
golden age, as we call it, the golden age, as we call it.
Nimmer's face beams up.
Oh, I'm crying now. Sheds tears of.
It lights up when you talk about that. It's
nothing more beautiful than scoring 1-0, closing shop, and then counter.
Players didn't get a long period like you in other nations. You'd get a top striker and he would play for 10, 15 years. That never happened for Italy. So that's the main reason. That's the main reason. And then for the last 10 years, when it's actually been easier to score, because if you look at the other countries, the top goal scorers are all generally players that played in the last 10 years or so. Some of them are nowhere near the best strikers in the history of the national teams that are top scorers. Like Memphis Depay, I think, is the top scorer of the Netherlands. Like some of these jokers that are top scorer that are nowhere near their best. But I think Giroud was Giroud, I love Giroud, but Giroud was top scorer for a while. I think has he been overtaken now? He's about to be overtaken.
Yeah.
Like Olivier Giroud is not even in the top 5 of the best France strikers, France attackers of all time. So it's
maybe 8 or 9.
At a time when it's because it's a lot easier to score more goals after the breakup of the Eastern Europe and when there was a lot more countries become independent, because you had a lot more smaller nations and easier nations to score goals against. Whereas before, there was less nations and everybody was the levels were much closer together. You had no gimmicks. You had no games where you would win 9-0, 10-0 like you do today when you've got Andorra and San Marino and
Gibraltar,
Gibraltar. Yeah. So you could pile up the goals, and while that period's been around, Italy have had no strikers. Yeah. So that's the reason.
Yep. Next question, Tommo says, Ciao, Niman, Carlo, hope you're both well. Question, you may get asked this more than once, but your top list of top 10 players of all time had one notable absence, Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar. Why is this? I agree, Neymar wouldn't be in my top 10, but there's no denying his talent. I'm not saying he's overrated, but there are players. But are there any players you think are overrated or overhyped? Jordan Henderson, Virgil van Dijk come to mind. I would even add Mbappe to that list. Great pod as always. Grazie mille. Look, that top 10 list of all time was very off the cuff. It was very on the spot, and I think we said it as much at the time as well. I would probably have Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo should have been on that list. I'll admit that. Neymar, no.
Neymar, nowhere close.
No way. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you look again, the Brazilian players that we grew up watching, is he better than Ronaldinho?
If you're basing it purely on numbers, then Ronaldo has to be in it, and then there's more of a
not
debate.
Just numbers, Carlo. Cristiano Ronaldo was an. I mean, I think he gets so much. Like people forget how bloody good he was.
No, he was amazing, but I mean, you're basing it with Ronaldo. You're basing it more on numbers. Like there have been.
I'm talking about consistency at the highest level.
Oh yeah, for sure. But there's been others like that. Eusebio was the same. Gerd Müller was the same. And we didn't have them in our top 10. So I think it depends how you're. And this is where you can't just do it off the cuff. You need to go away. You need to actually define how you're coming up with this top 10 list. Is it quality? Is it trophies, longevity, club and country? Like all those together. And then once you've done that, this isn't something that we can just, that we can even explain ourselves here, because it's such a difficult list to do. But based on numbers, I can tell you 100% Ronaldo would be top 5 based on numbers. Neymar, however you define it, would have not been anywhere near the top 10.
I mean, is he even amongst the top 5 best Brazilian attacking players?
No, of course he's not.
I don't think so.
No.
Not even close.
No.
So yeah, well,
I could name 5 Brazilian attackers greater than Neymar right now. Pelé, Zico,
Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Rivaldo. Like just in the last few years, I think Rivaldo and Ronaldinho were much of R9, Pelé, Zico.
Garincha.
Garincha. Yeah, no, it's sorry, but Brazil was not this shit for most of history. Hate to say it, hate to break it to people, but Brazil were insane once upon a time. But yeah, well, if you want us to do a list like that, send in a question and we'll do it properly and think through, and we'll both give our top tens. Right. Roman D'Alessandro says, "Hi guys, what does Gattuso need to do about this back line? That was utterly shocking. This back four seems so fragile when asked the simplest of questions. And how is it that Di Marco is attacking more than he does as a left wing back? He continually pulls Bastoni out of position. What's happening and how do we fix it? It's very simple. If you have a wing back like Di Marco, you don't play a back four. I just don't see that working. But if you do, you need to have a back three or the other three to invert so that you have a back three when moving forward. And I think that's what Gattuso wants to do. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's difficult though, isn't it? Like I've said it so many times. If you hire a coach, you have to hire a coach that knows how to play a back three. You can't hire a coach that only knows how to play a back four and ask him to play a back three. As simple as that. And that was the same problem with Spalletti. So let's just not have this debate again. It's pointless. Gattuso doesn't know how to use a back three, so there's no point us using it. But this is where up above Gattuso's head, you should have a clear strategy on what you want to do with the national team. This is how any proper club would be run. You pick the manager based on the players you have available, or based on the players you want, or based on the system you want to play for the players. So they've chosen Gattuso, and now they have to go with the back four.
Amen. And I said this already when we had that post-Euro mortem about Spalletti. What's the point of forcing someone to play some system that they can't play? It's a waste of everyone's time. Daniel Ljungström says, "Hey fellas, just came off your Champions League predictions. I was astonished how both of you seem to take for granted that Juve takes 3 points against Bodo Glimt. Of course, Juve is the far superior team on paper. However, as you know, Bodo have beaten Lazio, Porto, and Roma twice at home. They play on artificial grass, and the game is at the end of November. So in snow. Of course, Juve should go for 3 points, but have struggled in Scandinavia in the past in way better conditions. I'm expecting this to be tricky as hell given the circumstances." That's a really fair point, but I expect Juve to beat Bodo Glimt.
No, I don't take for granted any Juventus win away from home in the Champions League. No, I don't. Well, it's not. I don't see what's so funny about it, because the Juventus have shown this. They've shown this season. They showed last season as well with basically the same team as this season, albeit with a different manager. You can't just expect them to win. So yes, we think when we recorded it at a time when Juventus had won 2 games already start of the season, we thought, oh, okay, yeah, Juventus will start the season well. Then you actually watch Juventus's performance against Borussia Dortmund and against Verona, where Verona, are Verona better than Bodo Glimt? No, they're not.
Well, I would argue they are, because it's Zanetti and no, I'm just joking. I'd say they're on the same level somewhat. But yeah, no.
Maybe the same level player for player, but then you've got the factor of like. So no, I don't think we can just. And I don't think we ever said that. I don't think we ever just took for granted that they would win. I think we probably said, look, Juventus
winnable games,
win those games, get their points up, and then we see. I mean, on paper, that should be the easiest, one of the easier games, but doesn't mean I expect them to win, because I don't expect Juventus to go into any game really right now and expect them to win.
Agreed. I think where Juve are right now and Inter are right now, and to some extent Milan as well, I think you have to be a little bit more careful. But if we're talking qualitatively, yes, I think we should demand of Inter, Juve, and Milan to beat a team like Bodo Glimt. It's an underachievement if they don't. Then why that is, that's the analysis part, which we do quite a bit on this pod. Right, next question. Eirik Ingdahl says, "What are your top 3 most impressive Scudetto winners since 2000? And by impressive, I mean the weakest sides before the seasons that ended up winning it. Also, it's crazy to me as a Norwegian hearing you taking the qualifiers for granted for Norway. I was there in Ullevål when we drew 0-0 against Latvia and Slovenia in decisive matches with approximately the same squad, not over yet. Yes, Eirik, but it's a different Norway, and I understand that you're very, very skeptical, given that you haven't qualified for a final in forever. But I understand your superstition, but you're going to win the group.
When was the last time Norway qualified? Was it 98?
For the World Cup?
Was it 1998?
Yeah, they haven't played in the World Cup since then. They've been in the Euros. 2000.
2000, they were in the Euros, weren't they? Because I remember there was that crazy 4-3
Spain,
game.
Yugoslavia,
Yeah.
But the World Cup, I think, was 98 the last time, because they weren't in 2002. They weren't
Italy. Italy knocked them out of that World Cup. Vieri scored the last 16.
Counter-attack.
I remember that on the right with his right foot, bottom. Yeah,
counter-attack. A wonderful counter.
And he did that. He did the celebration. Him and Del Piero sat down, across their arms. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But this is a different Norway.
Yeah, you have to look at who they're playing. They've got 2 games, one at home to Estonia. You're beating Estonia at home. You're beating Estonia at home. And then the other game, we don't know. That game might not even happen, the other game.
Yeah.
We have to see. We'll see.
As for the 3 most impressive Scudetto winners, the weakest sides that ended up winning it, I think Napoli last season is just...
Napoli last season, from what year did he say?
From 2000.
Since 2000. I was going to say Milan 99. That was a pretty weak team. Milan,
yeah, but listen, people forget that Zaccheroni had just come. He was the hottest property. He was, rechanging things, playing 3-4-3. They brought in Bierhoff.
It wasn't a good Milan team. Have a look at that 11. There was some stinkers in that team. It was like Andres Guglielm Pietro playing. There was Sala in defence. They're good players were old, like Boban, Weah. They were like in their 30s, still class, but they were old. That was not a good. That was a Milan team at the end. Helveg, I think. Like it was.
That's what I mean. It was Udinese. It was the Udinese pop. Like they were the trendiest thing in Italian football back then with Zaccheroni and his 3-4-3. And so they brought him in, and they brought in Helveg. They brought in.
I think they won that. They won that season also because everyone else was shit. Juventus had a nightmare. Inter were having a nightmare. Not they didn't have the players Inter, but they were having a nightmare. Juventus were total shambles in the coaching situation. Del Piero got injured, so. Yeah, if we can sneak it back a year, I would say Milan 99, Napoli last season.
I'd rather choose the Milan with Pioli because that was nobody was expecting that.
Yes, Milan with Pioli.
Yeah, Milan with Pioli was definitely unexpected. No one expected.
Milan with Pioli, Napoli last season, and let's cheat and go Milan 99.
No, I think that's unfair. Let's stick to what he wants to do. The most surprising in terms of...
There's no one else. I mean, we're not saying surprising. We're saying by quality of the team. I thought Juventus's last Scudetto, either with Sarri or Allegri. I know they had Ronaldo, but I don't think they were great teams either, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's fair.
But they were much stronger than the other 2, yeah.
William Paganini says, Ciao Carlo Nima. My question for the pod is, who is Beppe Marotta's greatest ever signing and who is his absolute worst one?
Paul Pogba.
I think his worst one has got to be the player who, when he was presenting him at Juve, was talking about how disappointed he was he couldn't sign anyone better. And that is Niklas Bentner. That is the most bizarre player unveiling I have seen in my life, where you have signed a player on loan and you're talking about how disappointed you are you couldn't sign anyone better. Like,
yeah, Bentner was pretty bad. Nicholas Anelka as well. Do you remember him? Yeah. Anelka was pretty bad. There must be some worse ones though, because they were like cheap. They were like cheap, and they were cheap for fourth striker. Like, for a team that was already so much better than everyone else, it didn't affect them. Like I would rather go for a signing that worked out badly and then affected them badly. But yeah, if we're looking at it just in a vacuum, yeah. And best signing has to be Paul Pogba. He said it himself. He said that was the greatest signing. He bought him for a free transfer, sold him for 100 million.
Right. That has to be the best one. And also it was Pogba at his absolutely peak as well. He was unbelievable. But yeah, no, for me, the worst signing is Bentner, not because I expected anything from him, but the fact that he was literally standing there, slating him, saying how shit he was, essentially, and that he couldn't get anyone better whilst he was being unveiled. It's one of the most bizarre unveilings I've ever seen in football. Next question. Luca Capone says, "Hi, fellas. I can listen to Carlo and Nima talk about magical imps all day, but my question today is, what the hell is going on with this Ricci situation? He's going to be buried on Milan's bench when he needs regular playing time at a top club to not only fulfill his potential as the best central midfielder in both the Serie A and the Azzurri. He needs to go on loan in January, but where do you think he would flourish? Ideally, Inter makes the most sense, but that wouldn't happen. And would love to hear your thoughts. As always, and make amazing work on the pod." Well, thank you very kindly for that. I do not think Samuele Ricci is better than Barella or Tonali or has the potential to even be so. But best central midfielder in the Serie A, that's also a bit of a, I think he's a good player, but to become the best midfielder in Serie A is a little bit above his potential.
And he hadn't pushed on after that great performance where he blew me away against France in Paris.
Yeah, me too.
Then I really was really, and Man City were looking at him, and then he never really pushed on. And then he went to Milan, and the problem with Ricci is he doesn't seem to have any really big weapons in his game. He's just somebody that, he reads the game well, keeps it tidy, but he doesn't, he's not someone that's going to score. He's not someone that's going to create, get assists. He's just, that's his problem, I think. And he's gone to a Milan team that he's not going to play. He's going to be a sub player this season. You're not playing. Allegri views Modric as a regista. That's Ricci's position. So he's not going to play ahead of Luca Modric. And you're playing one competition this season, plus the Coppa Italia. So he's going to play Coppa Italia, start Coppa Italia games, which he did the other night, although he got taken off, I believe, at half time or early in the second half. So he's not going to play this season. And that's going to have an effect on Italy, for his Italy chances as well.
It absolutely will, and it's a bit of a problem because it's a problem because he needs to play, but at the same time, Allegri is right to play Modric as a regista. I think Ricci that is his position, but he's not going to unseat Modric, especially when he's playing the way he is. There's no chance of that happening. No chance on that happening. And I don't think they're going to send him on loan. They would be stupid to send him on loan in January. He needs to have, if people forget, the first season Tonali was at Milan, he was pretty much barely played. He was getting used to things at Milan. And then the second season he played and he was fantastic. So sometimes these players, when they go from smaller clubs to bigger clubs, need a season to just
take time. Yeah.
So give him time. Next question, Jonathan Ball. Will Samp have fired Donati by the time we record the Q&A? And what are the chances of Ivani and Lombardo returning to the job they should never have allowed to leave in the first place? I mean, as far as I'm aware, Sampdoria is in crisis, but Donati is staying. He's not going anywhere. It's still Massimo Donati, and it's we
had on the pod once about 3 or 4 years, 4 years, probably about 4 years ago now. Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, Donati. Celtic. Yeah,
he was in Scotland at the time. I think he was coaching in Scotland at the time, or something. If I remember rightly, like Kilmarnock or somewhere. Or am I completely making that up? Yeah. Anyway.
No. You're right. He was at Kilmarnock when we interviewed him. You're right. And now he's at Sampdoria. Yeah, so go check that interview out. It was a good interview. Click collections, click interviews, and scroll down, and you'll see where we had him. But yeah, well, I mean, it's not looking good, and they have to do something. And it's so sad because you want Sampdoria in the Serie A because the Derby della Lanterna is one of the most beautiful derbies in all of Italian football. And as for Ivani and Lombardo returning, well, look, I know they love the club and all that, but it didn't exactly go very well last time they were there. They were on the pitch, sul campo, to use a phrase that makes Carlo happy. They got relegated. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Next question.
Sul tavolo is a phrase you like.
No, onestà and dignità are phrases I like. Number 10, Dave. Next question. David Bacharach says, "Hi, Neem. I hope you and Carlo well. I was wondering if you could discuss the history of the 3 at the back formations in Italy and why they seem to be more popular in Serie A versus other leagues. Also, for you, what makes a centre back good in a back 3 formation as compared to a 4 at the back formation and vice versa?" This is an interesting question. It depends on the kind of back 3 it is. I mean, Capello won the Scudetto with Roma playing a back 3, essentially, with Cafu and Candela on the wings. It depends on the coach and the balance of the team. Someone like Inzaghi, he needs he needs, for me, more than the back 3, he needs the right centre back and the left centre back to be very good going forward in overlaps and pressing and pushing forward, and the centre back to be quick as well. But someone like Capello, Walter Samuele is one of the best defenders we've seen in recent years, but he wasn't exactly a sprinter. He wasn't exactly a speed bullet.
I think that, well, listen, the back 3, popularity of the back 3 only really started, it's quite modern in that when I say modern, like it was like Argentina 1986 is when it really started to become like widely used. Because they won the World Cup with it in 1986. And then it became quite popular, Italian 90. I remember Brazil using it, and there'd been a massive outcry about in Brazil. This is not Joga Bonito and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, then it started to infuse into Serie A. And so that's kind of like the original history of it. And then, yeah, like you said, at the turn of the century, it started to become quite popular with like Roma winning the Scudetto and everything. But it is overused now. I don't like it. I think it's a problem for the Italy national team. It's why we struggle with Italy because everybody's using back 3s and nobody is getting practice playing in a back 4. And so that's an issue. Why they use it, I think it's just become force of habit. It's become easy when you have a coach. Coaches are under a lot of pressure from getting sacked, and they just think, right, we're going to go with something that everybody's been using, everyone knows how to use, and it's less risk involved. But also, probably like compared to other leagues, Italy produces, certainly Italian-wise, but also in general, just foreign players, we don't have as many wingers as other countries. So it's easier to use a back 3 when you're relying.
You've got good wing backs as well. So, so there is that. It
is an issue. Like, I would like to see more diversity. I don't want to just see everyone playing a back 3. And unfortunately, like if you look at the top teams now, pretty much everyone's using them. Milan, Inter, Juventus are all using it. Roma are using it. Atalanta. The only ones that are not are Napoli and Lazio, aren't they? Out of the top teams, Como use a back 4. So yeah, Fiorentina. What's Pioli using? Is he using a back 3 or is he using a back 4?
No, he used back 4, but he has used back 3 in the past with Lazio. Right, Paul Stedman asks, "Hi guys, my team are Brentford. I'm intrigued that we've managed to sign Michael Kayode from Fiorentina. I appreciate the financial muscle of the Premier League, but could you give a brief overview of how a modest club like Brentford can compete against what I would have considered one of the giants of the game?" Again, it's the money. It's the money, and it's not just the transfer fee, but it's also the wages. Brentford can afford wages that most Serie A clubs can't dream of.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. Although in the case of Kayode, no one else actually was in for him when he was at Fiorentina in this particular case. But in general, that's the reason. It's money. Lots of money.
Loads of money. No, so good. Never gets old. Classic. No, but it is that, and that's how it is. I mean, if you remember, it was the same thing in the Serie A in the 90s when they had more money. They small teams bought fantastic players.
I do find it amusing how Kayode's become this like new Rory Delap long throw specialist. Like that's what he is. Like he takes all the throws, whether they're on the right side that he's on or the left side. He runs over to the other side and does these long throws. Quite amusing. I love how the long throw has come back into football. It's brilliant. Sound has gone, Emma.
Rory Delap and what's his name? Tony Pulis come back. All is forgiven. Next question comes from Next question comes from Kunal, who says, whenever I see Spinazzola, he seems impressive and back to his old self. Do you think he could be a starting left back for Italy in a back four and Cambiasso on the right instead of Di Lorenzo? Conte certainly improved him. I'm so impressed by Spinazzola.
Spinazzola for Napoli in their win against Spezia was absolutely amazing. But I think that 2025 has been the renaissance year for Spinazzola. Obviously, we saw what happened to Spinazzola at Euro 2020 in the Belgium game, the quarterfinal, where he got that awful injury, which he never really recovered from, and we thought it was the end of his career and at the top level. And here he is in 2025. He's 32 now. And if you look at the second half of last season, he was really, really good for Napoli. Napoli wanted to sell him in January, going into January. Then he had a couple of good games in January, and they ended up keeping him. And this season, he's been the starting left back for Napoli, ahead of Oliveira, who's been dropped to the bench. And he's been outstanding. And he looks, I'm not going to say he's back to his best, because he doesn't have those. He can't go on those long busting runs from deep going forward like he could, when he was in his late 20s. But yeah, he's been fantastic. And there's when it comes to kind of like dribbling, creating, going right, going left, that creativity and giving you that somebody that can create that overload and can eliminate their man, Spinazzola is still as good as anyone. And I said this myself. I think Italy should consider him. If Spinazzola is playing like this in March, when the World Cup playoffs come along, I would consider playing him as Italy's left back. Italy play a back four. Do I trust Spinazzola more in a back four than playing like this than I do Di Marco or even Cambiasso, who's a bit of a liability himself? I think I do right now on this form. Obviously, March is a long way away. We have to see how Spinazzola is playing there. But yes, I think I would. I'd definitely recall him, and I would consider starting him.
Yeah, it's. I agree. I'm of the opinion that the best when you go into a tournament, or when you pick a squad in qualifiers. In qualifiers and tournaments are different. In qualifiers, you need the best team that works in that system on that day. So you need players in form. It doesn't mean that you have to call them when you get to the final of the actual tournament, or the tournament itself. What qualifies for me is you bring in the players that are in best form and work in the system. And if Spinazzola is playing like this, he has to be called, and maybe not just called, start even, like literally, if he, like without a doubt. As for the squad in the tournament, that's different, because you know who you're playing the first three games. You're looking for different options. It's a short tournament. So there are different parameters. You need players that work in a group. They're going to live together for 2-3 weeks. Hopefully for 5-6. You need players that can give you different options in different situations of games, and so on and so forth. But as far as qualifying football is concerned, rather, if he plays like this in March and you're playing a back four, you definitely not only have to call him, you have to start him.
There's been an argument that Italy national team has never been the same ever since he got that injury against Belgium. Because if you see Italy before the Spinazzola injury, even in those Euros, and then there was an Italy before and there's an Italy after. The Italy before was an Italy that had that extra weapon. They had that player coming from deep who could create the overloads and made them more unpredictable. And as soon as Spinazzola went, they lost that. And if you watch them in the Spain game and against the England game, they looked like a team, a bit like the Italy team that we saw in the qualifiers, who, yes, they were unlucky to qualify, but an Italy team that actually they didn't create anywhere near as much without Spinazzola on the pitch. Because when you've got someone that can just dribble past his man and beat his man, that creates the overloads and it creates chances. And Spinazzola, I just have to say, he's one of my favorite players of his generation. I love Spinazzola. I love watching him play.
Same.
For me, he just captures the essence of what I love about football, and the kind of like the football that I grew up loving, like in the 90s, or even going back to kind of what football was in the 80s. these kind of players that you just love to watch them play. They're unpredictable, they're unorthodox, and they can beat their man. They're skillful, they're dribblers. We just don't have those kind of players in football now. Everybody's robotic, everybody's really predictable. You know what they're going to do. He's not. He's an individual, and I just love watching him play, and it's fantastic for me. It's fantastic to see him back playing at this level again.
Same. I love him too, and I'm still pissed off with Marotta for not allowing that swap with Politano and Spinazzola because of his utility as well, because he could play on the right as well. So it is what it is. Nikolaj Linde.
He's even played as a left winger. Like last season, when Napoli had no one. They had no players. They had no depth. He even played as a left winger sometimes.
Yeah, he did. No, he was. I don't understand what he was doing, pulling the plug when Politano was already standing with a Roma scarf. I mean, it's just. Oh. Anyway, Nikolaj Lindeberg says, hello, folks. Thanks for the great pod. Still the pod I look forward to every week. Thank you very much, Nikolaj. And question is, I feel bad for Kivo. It's like there's a pattern with clubs hiring former players when they know it could be kind of off-season for them. And they know the fans will respect former players and not complain right away. But I think it's bad for Italian football. We need to build coaches for the future. Where will Serie A be without Conte, Allegri, Ancelotti, Gasperini? And who do you see could continue to carry Italian football? His next question is, does Carlo have a Napoli shirt? When I was a teenager, I was a huge fan of every team Ronaldo played in R9, so much that when Denmark played Brazil in the World Cup 98, I was cheering on Brazil, even though I'm Danish. My parents watched the game at their friend's place, and I with my friends to avoid any conflict. Love that. Denmark played a great game, but lost 3-2. It was the last game for the Landry brothers. Today, I regret I was not cheering for Denmark that day, but it made me think there's a little place for Napoli in Carlo's heart. To touch on that Kivu question before we go to Napoli and Carlo part, this is why I said I think he's being set up to fail. And I used the Milan example of when they appointed Seedorf and Inzaghi and so on. I don't like when they do this. This is something they do in Italian football. When they have an off year, they just bring someone in and hide behind the legend. This is a sure way to burn out legends and their careers before they have a fair chance to do something. Filippo Inzaghi's career has never recovered. I'm not saying he would have been a great coach, but he might have been a better coach than had he not gone to Milan. Seedorf is barely a coach. I don't even know what we can call that post-football career, at least when it comes to coaching. So I hope that this doesn't go bad for Kivu, not just for Kivu, but for Inter. I hope I'm absolutely wrong, as I said at the time, that he doesn't get sacked by December and that Inter are doing well, but I'm still very skeptical. And I hope that his career survives it, because I think it's not good. It's not good at all. I don't like this thing that they do. As for where would Serie A be without Conte, Allegri, Ancelotti, Gasperini? Well, Ancelotti hasn't been in Serie A for a decade. But having said that, yes, I do think
way more than a decade, isn't it?
Yeah,
way more, like 15 years now, over 15 years.
Yeah, but I mean, look, Italy will always produce good coaches, but I do think that there's one aspect, and we'll talk about this in another, maybe a segment on the actual Monday pod or Thursday pod, but I do think the quality in the Serie A for goalkeepers and coaches has never been this low as it is right now.
At the top clubs, yes. Yeah, I agree. At the top level, I still think that at the medium level, there's still some exciting coaches there. I think, like for their level that they are. Like, you know, if you look at Lazio with Sardi, Roma with Gasperini, Como with Fabregas, you know, even Fiorentina with Pioli. I know he's had a bad start. Like, I think that's a good level for those level clubs.
Yeah.
But at the top, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Apart from Conte, that is.
Yeah.
Of course.
Does Carlo have a Napoli shirt, and do you have is there a little place in?
I don't have one, but I'm going to order one. It's been on my list because I love classic shirts. I'm going to order a Napoli boy Tony or
Mars.
Yeah, I'm gonna order one of those. That's on my list to do soon. So I will have one of those. But no, I don't have one. I don't have one current. I used to have one. I don't have one. I don't have one now. And yes, it does have a place in my heart because my mum's from Naples. I've got family that live in Naples, and so it does have a place in my heart. I do, you know, if I do, part of me does cheer for them.
Next question, Carmine Silveroli says, Ciao ragazzi, I got a question for the pod, mainly for Carlo, but I'd love Nima's take too. I'm writing the morning after you was 4-4 draw with Borussia, and the last 2 matches with Di Gregorio in goal have been tough to watch. Carlo, last season you said spending on him wasn't necessary since you've already had Chesney. So my question is, should Juve start Perin in coming matches or even look for a new starter altogether? And if so, who do you think could realistically fit in today's market? Thanks as always, and more Cockney accent. Well, I think I kind of replied to this saying that after the Dortmund game in our Thursday pod, where I said that I think that maybe benching him for 1 or 2 games just to give him time to find his form might be a good idea. But the broader question, should Juve start Perin or even look for a new starter altogether? I think looking for a new starter altogether is a little bit premature. But yeah, benching him a couple of games for Perin when you have that option is not a bad option. What do you think?
Yeah, having said that, though, he actually played pretty well against Verona, even though Juventus were awful. So he's probably got through that initial, you know, the initial kind of difficult period. Same as kind of Sommer did, but then the game after that, Inter brought in Martinez, who made that amazing save. So sometimes the clubs work this differently. They don't want to destroy the player's confidence by dropping him the next game. They let him play the next game, then they drop him. You know, so we'll have to see whether Juventus do that. But I don't think. Yeah, I'm not sure they will. He's not out of the woods yet, though. But he did put in a decent performance against Verona.
Missak says, how good was Del Piero back when he was 20 years old during the 94-95 season? He had 11 goals and 11 assists in all comps. And can Kenan Yildiz be better than him at the same age? Kenan already has 3 goals, 5 assists in 4 games. Ridiculous start by the season by the star boy.
There was a Del Piero before the injury, the ACL, and there was a Del Piero after. The Del Piero before had that extra pace. He lost half a yard. He had to tweak his game, and that's testament to what a fantastic player he was. That he had the ability and the brain to be able to know, you know what, I can't do the things I could do before, but I can still be a top player. I just have to change the way that I play. And before, he was a free-flowing player. He would run at players. He would go in. He would go out. He had a lot more. He was never lightning fast, but he was deceivingly fast, like over 5 yards. He had that burst of pace, and after the injury, he wasn't able to do that, and he became, he before the injury, he used to be even used out on the left a lot more, like even not as a kind of old-fashioned left winger, but I remember like Lippi, you would play him on the left, like in a 3-man attack, like when they used to have like Ravanelli and Vialli, and after that, it was a position he could never really do particularly well after the injury. So, yeah, he was fantastic, and he was a potential Ballon d'Or winner if it wasn't for that injury, and that kind of ruined his chances. Yeah,
agreed. Next question, Terry Tsoi says, Hi guys. Question for the pod. What do you think is the best 11, Fiorentina 11, and the best Parma 11 based on players from the 90s until now? Just to clarify, I mean the best Fiorentina 11 versus the best Parma 11 from 1990 to 2025. I love this question.
Okay,
just
Parma.
To put into Parma, Buffon in goal, no discussion.
Thuram, Cannavaro.
In defense, Benarivo to the right.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? I'm going to put Lilian Thuram on the right. I'm going to play Cannavaro in the middle, Benarivo to the left, and
Apolloni.
one of Apolloni and Minotti in the middle. That's my back four and Buffon in goal. Now, Juan Sebastian Veron has to be there. I'd play Sergio Conceição to the right because he was great there.
I would have I think you got to have Thomas Brolin. You got to have Gianfranco Zola.
Yeah, but Zola's up front. That comes later. So I'm playing. I'm playing a 4-3. No, I can't play a 4-3. I'm playing a 4-4-2. So Brolin to the right, Veron in the middle, and then on the left, Conceição, fuck it, I'll invert him. I don't care. Conceição has to be in there. Then I need a midfielder, a central midfielder. I need another central midfielder.
Dino Baggio?
Yeah, Dino Baggio could be there. Or Nestor Sensini, or... yeah. And then up front, Gianfranco Zola and Risto Stoichkov. I love Risto Stoichkov.
Yeah. Stoichkov was shit at Parma, though. He was a disaster at Parma. I mean, amazing player, but he was a disaster.
He didn't get along with anyone because he's Stoichkov.
Yeah.
I remember one game where he just ripped the shit out of Gianfranco Zola on the pitch, and it was not very popular.
I would have.
No, sorry, Crespo. What am I doing? No, Crespo and Zola. No, not Stoichkov. Crespo and Zola.
I would have Asprilla just for the nostalgia. Tino Asprilla.
Fiorentina. Toldo in goal.
Toldo in goal. Then you'd have. I think like the attack is easier. Batistuta.
Rui Costa, Enrico Chiesa. Like these are guys you have to have.
Yeah. Trying to think. Let's have a look. The Fiorentina have had some class players after as well, though, like into the 2000s and 2010s as well. Like I would have Chiesa, both Chiesas. I would have.
Yeah, both.
I would have Enrico. I would have. I mean, can we include Baggio? 1990.
No.
Yes, we can. He was still there in 1990.
Yeah, you're right.
For the first 6 months. So Baggio's getting in there. I'm cheating. Well, I'm not cheating. He was
Baggio,
there.
Rui Costa, Batistuta, Federico Chiesa, Enrico Chiesa. We have a very attacking, friendly side here. Moreno Torricelli has to be there because he's such an iconic player.
Yeah.
Who else?
I'm just looking at the who we got. Borja Valero. He was amazing. Let's have him in centre midfield.
We need players from
Juan Manuel Vargas, so we can have a free kick taker.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thomas Repka was kick-ass. Daniela Adani, Angelo Di Livio.
Luca Toni, man, golden boot winner. He has to be in there.
Yeah, Jovetic and Gilardino.
Stefan Effenberg in centre midfield. Let's stick him in there.
For sure.
Yeah, you got enough there anyway.
Yeah,
we got enough.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great question. Love that. 16, Marty Glenn says, Ciao ragazzi, I came across this question from Matt Santangelo on Twitter and wanted to know your thoughts. If you could only choose one of Kenan Yildiz and Nico Paz to start and build a team around, who would you choose? I don't think I quite understand why there's a contradiction between Kenan Yildiz and Nico Paz. I think I don't see why they couldn't play together. But if you were to choose one, it's a difficult one because Yildiz is more, for me, Nico Paz is more dynamic. Like he's more of he's got more traits of an 8 than Yildiz does, if you know what I mean. Yildiz is more of a classical number 10, whilst Nico Paz can tie the midfield together with the attack in a different way. So I think it's different.
Yildiz is more of an attacker. Paz is more of an attacking midfielder.
Exactly.
But who would you choose between them? Difficult one. They're both incredible players.
I'll go with.
I'll go with Yildiz. If we're going to say next 3 years, I'm going to say Yildiz.
Well, that's the thing. I think Nico Paz is already exploded and much better or more further along than Yildiz is. So I'll go with Nico Paz then.
He's playing for a smaller team though, isn't he? So but they're both amazing. Doesn't matter.
It's really hard, but I'll go with Nico Paz just to balance Carlos Gobismo here. Jack Hacken says, "Hi Neiman Carlo, got another question for the pod.
Paz is not joined the inside. It's gone, Nima. It's gone. that boat has sailed." He's going back to Real Madrid. That's all done.
Of course he is. I know he is. This is never going to happen. Can Lord Lloyd Kelly actually, no matter how many dinners Zanetti takes his dad and family to at his restaurant, Il Gaucho and Botinero, he's not going there anyway. all the free state Argentinian steak in the world can't stop him going back to Real Madrid. Can Lord Lloyd, Jack Hacken says, can Lord Lloyd Kelly actually still pan out as a signing for Juve? He got a lot of laughs when he arrived in January. He probably wasn't that good in his first season, but now I feel things have changed. He's now stepped up in 2 big games, and it's easy to like the guy. And what would be on your Prem Face bingo card?
Oh, God. Prem Face bingo card.
Well, he actually made one, and I retweeted it, so that I think he pretty much covered all of them. The only thing he didn't have, I think, was the Germans. That was not there. But other than that, you hit the spot.
Yeah.
As for Lloyd Kelly, look, he's had a good start to the season. Offensively, defensively, I think there are still question marks, to put it diplomatically. But look, he's there. He's trying. He's obviously improved.
Listen. We got to look at levels here. Juventus, to win the Scudetto, you don't win the Scudetto with players of the level of Lloyd Kelly in your team. You don't. He's not a Scudetto defender. Yes, he's playing well at the moment. Yes, he's going through good form. Yes, maybe he'll have a good season. But if you're just looking at this logically, I'm in charge of Juventus and I want to build a team to win the Scudetto. You don't sign players like Lloyd Kelly. You don't. Not for 20 odd million to be a first team starter. Could Lloyd Kelly do a job if he was next to 2 top defenders next to him? Maybe. If the rest of the team was all outstanding, you could maybe get away with it, but not with the number of kind of weak holes that Juventus have elsewhere in their team. So no.
Yep.
But well done to him for his performances of late. That's what I'll say.
Absolutely. Next question. Kevin says, how much do you think a nation's footballing identity is impacted by weather? Watching Premier League games in August, where temperatures are not much different than what is normal in Spain and Italy, the announcer would sometimes mention how it was less physical due to the weather. Are catenaccio and tiki-taka simply ways of controlling the game that make the most sense for the climate versus the pressing and physicality of places like England and Germany? I like this question. I really do. I really like this question. It's interesting because I think a lot of it does hinge on that. I think
it used to more than it does. I think back like 10, 20, 30 years ago, I think the weather did play a role in the development of players. But as we've discussed on this pod, with the younger generation just being addicted to the drug that is their phones, you don't get people on the streets, in the parks, playing football that way anymore. You don't. I don't know what it's like in your country, in Sweden, but in England.
Yeah,
I'm talking about England, where, but I know it's the same in Italy. You go onto the parks and in the streets, you don't see anyone playing football anymore. So it's football nowadays. Development of footballers today is through kind of organised through academies, or weather pitches, or inside football. So that way, the weather doesn't really play much of a role anymore like it used to. But before, yes, it did. And how you played, like in Brazil, for example, with the hot weather, playing barefooted on the beach, you'd get the more skillful, technical players who had more of a feel and a touch. It still does have a role in some cases. Everybody has their identity and their cultures, but generally not as much. And also, we're living in a global world now as well. Like if you take Germany, for example, that historically
they've changed identity completely.
Yeah, but also Germany. I don't want to make this about immigration, but Germany before had 11 blonde players that were all playing in a certain style. Now half the German team are immigrants or from Turkish or from other backgrounds, and that means that their identity changes as well. And that's
I remember before Germany, which is the most German thing ever. Before this happened, there was a discussion, very open, broad discussion, whether or not they should allow players with different backgrounds in the national team or not, because will this change how we play? Will this be an identity? Blah, blah, blah. Then what happened was that Germany wasn't producing very many world-class players anymore, like the Matthäuses and Bremers and so on. And so they changed things from bottom up. They had a long discussion. They had a debate. Both sides debated. There was no screaming and yelling about, people calling each other names. They had a very open debate in German football. They decided that this was the way they were going to go. The other losing side was not happy, but then they won. Look at them. They've been to finals, European finals. They won World Cups. Okay, granted, the last few years they've lost some of the German identity. But that is traditionally used to do well. I mean, a Germany side that concedes at the death never used to happen. And there is now they're saying, well, now you've lost that, and that's impossible or it's very hard to recreate that, and so on. So, yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I can tell you that when it comes to weather, I think Scandinavia for sure, Norway and Sweden in particular, and Finland, given the weather conditions, is definitely.
Yeah, I think it's more how you handle those weather conditions. I think that, we'll probably see at the World Cup that the English players will struggle more with the heat because they're not used to the heat. I don't think it makes so much difference now in terms of playing the game because, like I've just explained, people don't grow up playing on the streets or on the parks anymore. They all play.
I just had a vision of Harry Kane, red like a lobster, like an English tourist in Ibiza.
The best is the 1994 World Cup in America. Have a look at the Irish national teams during the national anthems. That was the best. Steve Staunton actually got sunburn during the national anthem.
I remember.
He was a funny story at the time because Hilarious. He was a typical kind of pasty-skinned Irishman with a ginger hair. And he got so in the next game he put a cap on during the national anthem. He put a cap on.
So good, brilliant. Don Galzarano says, "Hi gents, I got a question for Carlo. Given Lord Kelly's start to the season better than anyone expected, what will it take for Carlo to graduate him from Lord to Lloyd Kelly?" Thanks as always.
Juventus to win the Scudetto.
That's a clear enough answer.
I'll call him Lloyd.
That's a clear enough answer. Aristodimos Cassis says, "Good morning, guys, and thank you for the content. Another question for the pod. Which player from the current Greek national team would you pick to start or be one of the main subs in Juventus, Inter, Milan, and Napoli? Also, another question mainly for Nima. Do you remember Georgiatos and Karagounis at Inter? They were two of the best Greek players of the 90s and noughties. Do you like watching them at Inter back in the day? I know Kara wasn't a starter, but he was a starter at Benfica and Fulham at 36. I think Georgiatos would be a starter for every Serie A team right now. And a trivial for you, his name was the crazy bald guy. He was crazy and he was bald, and I loved him at Inter, and I don't understand why he was only there for one season, then he left because he was very, very good. Georgiatos is, I don't know, it was when Inter were making crazy moves. I really liked Georgiatos. I really, really liked him. Karagounis not so much, but Georgiatos I really, really like. I really, really liked him. As for which Greek player would start for Juve, Inter, and Milan now, I think
Pavlidis would be a useful player. I'm not sure, not as a starter, but I think as a third or fourth striker. I think Pavlidis I like Solis as well at Club Brugge as well. I like him, but I don't think any of them would be starters. Obviously, we do have a few like Tsimikas, for example. He's at Roma, played last night in the Europa League, did pretty well. I like him. There's the lad at Como as well. So yeah, but not starters. And I loved Georgiatos as well, by the way. I really liked him.
Awesome player. Right, last question we have time for this week. And as I said, the next question, all the questions we haven't answered will be carried on forward to next week, and it's only 7 or 8 questions I think that we haven't had time for, so don't worry, they will be on next week and onwards. Last question comes from Yihuan Zhang. He says, I want to do this as a social as well. Who would you pick as the top 10 stars in Serie A from the current players? To me, it's different to the top 10 best players in Serie A because it should also factor in their fame and commercial value in addition to current performance level, of course. For example, CR7 at Juve, I think he was undisputably the biggest star in the Serie A, even though he wasn't necessarily the best player in the league, if measured by on-field performance only. I'm curious who you would pick by that standard.
So what are we answering then? The top 10 commercial stars in Serie A?
Well, the top 10 stars with the highest commercial value, in addition to performance, of course.
Okay. All right. And so we are going to do the top 10 commercially valuable stars.
Most commercially valuable stars in the Serie A right now, but taking in performance on the pitch as well.
Okay. All right. You're going to have to introduce that.
Okay. So the top 10 stars currently in the Serie A with the best commercial value, in addition to taking current performances on par as well.
That's really going to hook in the viewers. That is the way you've introduced that.
I don't know. It's a clunky way, but never mind. People get it.
I think. Look, let's just keep it simple for social. The top 10 most commercially valuable stars in Serie A that aren't shit. There we go. That'll hook them in. So no Mario Balotelli if he still is in Serie A. I don't think he is in Serie A anymore.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So 10th. So the top 10 without any ranking.
I'm gonna have to have a little think about this. Right.
Okay. So for me, Kenan Yildiz, Nico Paz, Chico Conceição, Lautaro Martinez,
Rafael
Leao, of course.
Luca Modric, even though he's 40.
Yeah.
Kevin De Bruyne.
De Bruyne, without a doubt.
Scott McTominay.
8. And Ademola Lookman once he comes back.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I think Ademola Lookman has to be in there, doesn't he?
And who else?
Who have we got from Inter at the moment?
Nicolo Barella. No, Bastoni. Bastoni is starting to finally, Barella, Bastoni. But yeah, Barella, Bastoni. There you have 10, 11 players. Right.
I would put Moise Kean as well.
Yeah,
I think Moise Kean is commercially valuable because also just everything about him, like his music, his look as well with the dreadlocks. I think that there's definitely something sellable about him image-wise. Do you know what I mean? I think he has something that advertisers commercially, he's striking. So I think that is important in trying to sell. Roma, anyone from Roma? Dybala. I think Dybala has to be.
La Hoya.
I think Dybala has
Matias
to be.
Sole and La Hoya.
Yeah, I think so. Should we choose our 10 then? We've gone through kind of
14 players. Yeah,
we've gone 14 players. So I would say Kevin De Bruyne, Scott McTominay, Kenan Yildiz, Rafael Leao, Paulo Dybala, Ademola Lookman, Lautaro Martinez,
Marcus Thuram for me as well. He's very marketable.
Marcus Thuram, Moise Kean. We need one more.
Alessandro Bastoni or Chico Conceição. Yeah, one of those. Yeah, cool. Right, those are all the questions we have time for this week. We'll be back on Monday for a full review of the weekend's action. In the meantime, as I said, those questions that we haven't answered, the 7 of them, we'll push to next week. And please do send in your questions for the pod, as well as always via DM on Patreon. So until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Ciao, ciao.